Hey guys, hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, I am glad you're here. If you get the chance and you're so inclined, please hit that subscribe button down below. It'll help notify you when I release new videos, and it'll also help me get my videos seen by more people because it does something allegedly with the algorithm. And I'd just like to have you subscribe to the channel if you like knife content, EDC content, and the such. So anyway, we'll jump right into it today, and I wanted to go through in no particular order just 5 knives out of my collection that are full titanium knives. They're not extravagant. Some of them are very value oriented, and some of them are a little more expensive, but none of them are crazy expensive. I think they're all very good values. They're all kind of medium, which, to quote Christine Women Carry Knives, is kind of a cross between a small and a medium knife, around 3-inch blades. And they're just knives that I really enjoy, that I've kept in my collection, and that I could highly recommend. So starting off, this is the Kubey Vagrant. The Kubey Vagrant, the only, I would say, negative to this particular knife for a potential buyer is if you're not a thumb flick guy or a middle finger flick guy or gal. So I choose middle finger flick for a type of deployment. So I have no problem easily flicking this knife. I do not do very well with thumb flicks, so I cannot thumb flick this knife well. So some people might find this knife hard to deploy. If you're a middle finger flicker, this knife is butter. If you're right-handed, I should say. I'm a right-handed dude, and I like middle finger flicking as my deployment method. So, I know a lot of people don't, so use that with a grain of salt. But outside of that, and for me it's not a negative, I love this little knife. First off, I got it on Amazon, and I got it on sale. You can tell it's not perfectly centered right now. It actually is perfectly centered right now. I was just looking at a weird camera angle. Sorry guys, that was my ADHD. I shouldn't look through the camera, but anyway, I do. So as I got sidetracked there, I picked this up on Amazon, and I want to say around Black Friday, this thing was on sale for $119, maybe even less than that. I'd have to look through my records. But what I can tell you about this knife, besides the fact that it's got great action, it's got and again, if we want to nitpick negatives, it's got the traditional Kubey branding that I'm not a huge fan of, but that is going to be on the blade. And then you've got the blade steel, which in this particular variation, it's S30V. So it's not the highest of high premium steels, but it is a premium steel, and it's titanium, and it has this nice anode hardware. And I am proud to report, hold on, let me make sure I've got a T6 bit in there now. Grab a T8. Yeah, T8 hardware all the way around. That's what I was going to check. Even the lock bar insert and the clip. So let's just say well done, Kubey. So I don't think I'll be able to say that on all the knives we look at. But anyway, I love the blade shape. It's kind of a sheep's footy style, Wharncliffe blade, modified, whatever you want to call it. But when you look at things that are kind of, to me, important, the sharpening choil on this guy is done very, very well. I don't know if you can see that there, but you've got just a really good bit of material that you could sharpen off. Not that you would. You're not going to run into any issues there. You've got some very aggressive but not painful jimping here. So you get a really good handhold on this knife. Whether you choke up to the trigger or stay in the handle, it doesn't really have a finger choil per se. That's a sharpening choil. But just depending on how you handle the knife, when I use it, I'm usually opening packages or, doing little cuts. But I would probably keep my hand in the handle just because, as you can tell, it's medium sized, but I've got a large to medium sized hand. Fits mine really well. The action on this knife is butter, drop shutty. has fantastic lock bar access. If you can tell there, that side is chamfered out to where you can get in, and there is, whoops, focus camera. Or should I say focus iPhone. Can you see that milling right there inside the lock bar too? So you've got this real fine milling in the titanium, good lockup, and again, I'm horizontal, but drop shut action. And that's the Kubey Vagrant, guys. So that's number 1 out of 5, what I think are really good, recommendable titanium knives. Next up, we have the Ferrum Forge Stinger. And I knew I would fail that. It's actually not hard to fail, but it's not hard to open either. You just got to not put pressure on the lock bar, because I should have said in the description, these are all frame locks too. So these are titanium frame locks. But this frame lock is done really well, but it is sensitive to pressure. So again, as you guys know, in the Ferrum Forge Stinger, all you have is this fuller to flick off of. If you're a regular flipper opener, this also has a flipper. Probably one of the most ergonomical knives in my collection, which we'll talk about after I explain away my inability to flick this knife. So if I don't put pressure on the lock bar and I get my finger in that groove, which now that I'm thinking about it, I won't get it again, but I can easily flip this knife. I'm just going to choke under pressure, which is okay. But the Stinger, that's not what makes it the best for me. I mean, I don't mind using a flipper to deploy it. This knife, like the Kubey Vagrant and the other knives that are going to be in this little overview or this top 5, are all very slicey knives. The Ferrum Forge Stinger, probably the most slicey of the bunch. This is a Nitro V blade with titanium handles that are covered in snail trails, which is okay because I do carry my shit and I use it, and that's why I got it. So this knife, the Stinger, if you guys have seen a Ferrum Forge Stinger, they also make it in a G10 variation. When the titanium came out, I had to add it to my collection. I already had a Stinger. I'm a big fan of Ferrum Forge, not like said Stevie. He's kind of got the master collection. I've collected all of their production, I would say recent knives, the Blade HQ knives that I've been able to grab, such as the Stinger, the what's the little Warncliffe, the little mini Archbishop, the Buck that was a drop collaboration, this Stinger, and the Pro-X or Prolex. So those are the ones that I've been able to collect and grab, and I like all of them. They're all very, very slicey knives, and the titanium and Nitro V, nothing super special on the blade steel, but again, just a really taking my favorite knife. The only flaw I would say is with the frame lock. It doesn't make it as easily flicked as my G10 liner lock, because I can flick it on command. But you've got this really well designed flipper here on the back. This I will never fail, no matter how much pressure I have on that lock bar. Of course you could fail it, but you're not going to. So Ferrum Forge Stinger, another fantastic little knife in my collection that I could highly recommend to anybody who's looking for a medium sized, very ergonomical, fantastic finger choil, small, nice, in a nice package. So as we move along, we come, and this knife, I want to say when I got it, it was right under $200. I think now they're around $150. I could be wrong, but I don't know if the Stinger frame locks are in stock, but I've seen several of them on NAF sale come up, and if you ever see them, I've seen them as low as I think $120. But yeah, great knife. I could recommend it. Moving on, we will probably come to the best value in the bunch, and that is the Q-Vist Variant PE, and this is the version 1, guys. So this was the first variant that came out. It was Jacob Lundquist's design, which he since has done the V2 that has the front flipper that sticks up. He's done the little slip joint that just came out. He's done the reverse of this one. I want to say it's called the reverse or something like that, but I'm an idiot. I'm not thinking about that. But this knife is a great value because when it was new, this knife was actually gifted to me from a brother in the community, Sobek Scooter, my man, and it'll always be in my collection. It came to me with JG10 scales, and if I'm not mistaken, this knife retailed for under $60. It's 14C 28 blade steel. It holds a very good edge. I've sharpened this knife. The steel feels great, sharpens great. It's got a fantastic edge on it, 17-degree edge like I do on all my knives. It does have the flipper deployment, or flipper hole deployment, so if you're not a thumb flicker, which I'm of course not, or a middle finger flicker, the V2 will have a top flipper. So the ones that you could get now, unless you see this on the secondary market, keep in mind that it is a thumb hole deployment. I can slow roll it, pinch it open. So there's, very easy ways to deploy it. And as you guys know, as I've said in the video, I'm a middle finger flicker. But the knife was under 60 bucks, and then the scales became available on Jacob's site. And I want to say these scales were probably the most economical titanium scales I've gotten, and they were right around, I want to say 40 bucks. So if you take, this knife would have probably been around $100, $110 in this variation with titanium. And I just really like it. It's got a really nice design, very ergonomical, and you can use it in all different kinds of grips. It might not be as ergonomical as the two knives before it, but the way that the sway back type handle here fits in my hand, this cutout is not sharp. To me, it feels almost natural, but I could see that people might think that's a negative, or it might be subjectively a negative to you. But these edges are rounded over nicely. The liner is there. It's proud so that you can get to it. But to me, and I've used this knife to process cardboard, guys, to open packages. It just works very, very well. Action's great. On bearings, just a great little knife. That's the Q-Vis variant PE. Moving on, we will come to a little fantastic knife. And this, I think, if I was not mistaken watching Maddie's live tonight, this is one of his favorite little knives. And this is the Artisan Cutlery Arion, I forget how to spell it. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's a Serbius Blade Works collaboration. It's got a serial number on it and a little Serbius Blade Works logo and S35VN, kind of billboardy up there. I don't know why it has to have a serial number. I guess it was limited number of releases. And then you've got the Artisan Cutlery logo on the other side. But again, S35VN, and I don't know if you guys can see, let's see if the iPhone will pick up the pattern in that milling. So these handles are not smooth. They're micro milled, and when I say micro milled, they are micro milled. You can almost hear it more than you can see it. And again, my screen on my phone is smutsy, so maybe this is showing up. I'm not seeing it through the screen. I'm seeing it when I look under the screen. But the micro milling's very fine, and it's done really well. This knife was $199, so it was under 200 bucks, but it was probably the most expensive out of the ones that we've looked at right under 200 bucks. But I love this little knife. It is also under the same pretense of the others. It is a flicker hole, deployment hole, liner lock only. So for me, who's a middle finger flicker, take that with a grain of salt. If I even said that right, that's a tongue twister. Middle finger flicker, flipper, whatever you want to call it. It really deploys great for me right-handed. Thumb flicking, same problem that I have on the Vagrant, where I'm putting pressure on the lock bar. I can't get a thumb flick. I can pinch it open and slow walk it like you can on any knife that you might not be comfortable finger flicking yet, but you like the look of the knife, you like the style of the knife. Don't let the blade hole deployment method be the only reason you don't get it, because there are other ways to very easily open the knife, and if you have one for a while, guys, I couldn't middle finger flick to save my life forever it took me to learn how to middle finger flick. And it was watching Jake Bearded Gear, unbeknownst to him, that I kind of picked up the technique. And the first knife that I successfully flicked, which is just me going on a squirrel brain ADHD ramble, was the Spyderco Shaman. And after that, just continuing to handle and play with knives, which doesn't sound very responsible, but play with knives responsibly, or as responsibly as one can who's in their middle ages, we'll say. This little artisan cutlery is done fabulously well. Titanium clip, S35VN, Serbius Blade Works collab, just like the big Arion, but in a smaller package that I really like. So moving on, we'll go to my number one in this category. And believe it or not, a top 10 knife in my entire collection. So guys, I've got a bunch of knives in my collection, and I've got some knives that are inexpensive. I've got some knives that are very expensive, and this knife is a value knife by most stretches. This is the Asher Nomad with the flipper hole. And yes, it's flipper, but I can thumb flick this one because it's a liner lock. I can slow roll it. It's got a very stiff detent, which is good for me. And when you listen to that, Lefty did a video on this where he compared it, and he had the Oz Machine Company Roosevelt. I've held it. I've played with it. I'm a big fan. I have not added one to my collection. I can tell you that this little knife right here at $115 feels very reminiscent of the Oz Machine Company Roosevelt. And that's just the way that the action flies out. The actual weight and feel of the knife, it might be a little bit thicker, but go look at Lefty EDC's channel and look at the review side by side he did on this knife if the Nomad interests you, because I found it just a great video. But Asher knives, guys, they are pound for pound fantastic manufacturer. I think they do a great job. You'll notice I've got snail trails all over my knives. All of them pretty much do, but it's just because I don't baby them. There are a couple that have less snail trails than others, but you know, it's just part of carrying something around in your pocket. S35VN and titanium. That's one downside of titanium. Smooth titanium handles here, but nice S35VN blade. Again, I've sharpened all of these blades that you see on this little top 5 observation of just 5 knives that are, I think, really good. The Asher Nomad is by far number one. T8 hardware all the way around. If you look at this hardware, guys, that is deep barrel hardware. If you look at the way this reversible clip's done, you've got the titanium filler tab. You've got just the little Asher Knives logo on the pivot. You've got a real discreet blade steel marking on the blade. No billboarding, nice clip. I think that's a steel clip. I'm not 100% sure about that. That's kind of a guess, but I'm going to say it's a steel clip. Might be titanium, who knows. The only T6 on this knife is the clip and the lock bar. So you would need a T6 to take it apart to get the clip off, but the clip's done very well. You've got inset screws that are flat, that the clip recesses perfectly into the knife as cleanly as this titanium filler does. Again, reversible. Titanium back spacer, a little bar here in the back where you've got a doodad hole for your doodads and you don't mess up the ergos of the knife with a hole. I mean, just well done. I can't tell you guys how, you know, when I tell you that the premise of my channel is kind of to share how a knife makes me feel, this knife makes me smile every time I use it. It is just a banging winner. You can find these. What I recommend is, subscribe to Asher Knives website. Follow them on Instagram and reach out. DM Asher Knives. I'm going blank. I know it's Justin or Spencer, and I don't want to say one and it be wrong in the video, so I'm going to say Spencer, Justin. Reach out to Asher Knives via DM if you're interested in this knife and say, hey man, I really like the Nomad with the blade hole. Let me know next time there's a drop and I'll grab one from you. Guys, I know that sounds like a lot of work, or you can chase them on the website and they go so fast, but I will tell you that every Asher knife that I've obtained, and I've obtained a slew of them, I have quite an Asher Knives collection because I really like what they're doing. I like the way they do it. I just dig the knives, but every one of them, long story short, have been because I've DM'd, reached out, made it apparent that I wanted one, and Justin, and I'm thinking it's Justin, put one together for me. Took maybe a week, some cases a couple of days, some cases a couple of weeks, but every single time I was greeted with a DM, I was sent a PayPal invoice, and everything was just perfect. I mean, it's just a great knife, and it's about $115. Yeah, what can I say? I mean, this is by far one of my top 10 knives in my entire collection. Now, it's hard to say when I've got knives that cost as much as some of my knives do. So if I broke out my whole collection and looked at it and thought of the house catching on fire, would I run off with this one? I've got 120 bucks invested in it. I'd try to find room for it. I'll tell you that. I'd stick it in my pocket. I'd keister pocket it, to quote Mattisfaction, because it's that good of a knife, guys. But anyways, that's just kind of a rant in my attempt at being funny. I wouldn't keister it. I'd leave it behind, and I'd grab my Hinderers, I'd grab my Protex, I'd grab my Medfords, I'd grab my Brian Browns. We all know how that game works. But anyways, love the knife. All these knives I think are fantastic knives that anyone would be, if you like this style of knife, if this is kind of your jam, any of these would be Javon approved. And I have no association with any of these knives except for I love them and think they're great knives and want to share them with you guys. So with that being said, I'll ask you, if you've made it this long, thank you for one. I'll thank you for making it this long, but I'll ask you to subscribe. I know it takes a little more time to subscribe, but it does make a difference because I'll start showing up in your feed. I release videos every day. They come out like at 6 a.m. I kind of stage them out, move them around depending on what's, how I feel that night when I'm looking at them. But hit that subscribe button because you'll be notified. When I do unboxings, whenever I get the box in, I usually unbox it and I'll post that video right then. So those aren't scheduled videos. And when I do live streams or jump on just a random camera test live, something like that, you'll be notified in case you want to jump in. And it helps the channel be seen by others. So getting off the soapbox, most importantly about all this is please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Look out for each other. Go forward with love in your heart. Choose debate over hate. No, I love you all. I appreciate and am humbled by you coming by the channel, watching any of my content. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you all. Peace.